Measuring current with a multimeter is something that could be done, but it's not something that you probably want to do very often. And let me show you why. Here's an example using a simple appliance space heater. I'm not saying that there's a lot of times that you want to measure the current of different things around your house, but the principle here is saying that when you want to measure current with a multimeter, you have to put the multimeter in series with whatever you're measuring, which means you have to disconnect wires, disconnect plugs, do something special in order to put that multimeter in series. So the way that I'm going to demonstrate measuring current with a multimeter is I've actually taken a couple of line splitters. Now line splitters, what they do is they're used with clamp meters, because with a clamp meter you can only clamp around one wire at a time. You can't clamp around an entire cord, and I'll show you that in another section on clamp meters. So a line splitter brings the neutral wire down one side of this splitter and the hot wire down the other side, so you can clamp around just a single wire. What I've done with these line splitters is I've taken this one, I've actually cut the neutral wire in here so that I can complete the circuit by putting my multimeter here where the wire is not cut, and then to this side going into the appliance. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll disconnect this guy, plug my line splitter in, plug it in here. So now my hot wire is connected all the way through, my neutral is broken there. So now I'm going to take my multimeter, turn it over to the amp setting. Let's turn the display on so you can see it. I'll plug this guy in series now in between these guys, completing where that broken wire is. And now that it's in series, let me turn the heater on and we can get a current measurement. Right now we're showing 8.8 amps through that current measurement. This is a 1500 watt heater and it's not on high, so it's drawing quite a bit of current. It's much easier taking a clamp meter, clamping around the wire and getting the same, getting 8.7 amps, pretty close to the 8.8 that's being read for something just clamping around a wire and sensing the current. So it's way easier measuring current with a clamp meter than it is with a multimeter. Even though it's easier measuring current in a breaker panel, same thing happens. You would have to come into this panel and actually remove this wire and then connect your multimeter in series with that wire to measure current that's coming through this breaker. If you were trying to measure current on a lot of these breakers, you're disconnecting a lot of breakers and wiring that in series, and then putting the meter, the wire back together after you measure it. It's a lot simpler just to come in with a clamp meter and clamp around that wire to measure current than it is to do it with a multimeter. So current measurements are used on multimeters primarily for small signaling stuff where you're looking at controlling relays with just a couple of milliamps, where a clamp meter can't pick up milliamps very well. It's not really used for measuring current through circuit breakers, which is what the majority of the time you're an electrician is trying to measure current for. In that case, he's using a clamp meter. That's one of the reasons why we offer the MM5000 meter that doesn't actually have current jacks. It's more of an electrician's multimeter where it just gives you the voltage, low impedance functions that are important to an electrician, and you don't have to pay the extra money for the current measurement. Let your clamp meter do the current measurement. Even if you were using a multimeter in an electrical panel and were going to break the wires to measure that, you can only go to 10 amps, and a lot of panels are using 20 and 30 amp, even 40 amp breakers. You're going to be using a clamp meter for most of the time. You don't really need to have a current measurement on your multimeter.